So what I want to talk to you about today is the Autoimmune Protocol, AIP diet, because this has been really successful in managing not just my own symptoms, but also those of my clients and other people in my life. And there's loads of research out there to show that it works. And quite frankly, even if you are skeptical, you have got nothing to lose by trying it, because you're still eating a nutritious, broad diet that is only going to benefit you. So, although it can be quite restrictive, and if you are in the throes of your autoimmune condition, it can feel quite a big thing, a challenge to be able to create meals that are suitable for you. But it's restrictive, but only for a period of time. It's basically an elimination diet. We remove all inflammatory foods, and then we start to add foods back in one at a time to see how we get on. These are the foods that are removed as part of the autoimmune protocol. So grains. So wheat is containing gluten, and gluten is a protein found in many cereals such as wheat, barley and rye. But there are other grains and cereals that are gluten-free, but we still remove these because something like oats, for example, they're gluten-free, but the proteins in them look very similar to gluten, and therefore the body can react to them as if they were gluten, even though they're not. So we remove all grains on an AIP diet. We also remove legumes, so we're talking beans, peas, seeds and nuts here, because they can be inflammatory to the bowel. All processed foods, so it's very, very focused on fresh meat, fresh fish, vegetables and fruit. We remove dairy products, we remove seed oils and vegetable oils, canola oils. These are rancid oils, they're high saturated fat oils, they're not nice. Instead, we want to focus on coconut, avocado, hemp, ghee, healthy fats. We also remove refined sugars, eggs, herbs from seeds, so things like coriander, cumin and nutmeg. I personally have a big problem with nutmeg and cinnamon. They both bring me out in a rash, and if I was to keep eating those after seeing a rash, I would eventually get swelling in my thyroid, which is basically I've created a trigger in my body and then it is attacking my thyroid. Coffee, I know a lot of people will find that difficult. I've got an alternative for that, I'll show in a minute. Chocolate, dried fruits, because they're high in sugar, and a lot of them have preservatives in them as well. Emulsifiers, so you might, if I can say this blooming word, carrageenan, which you might find in some nut milks. There's a coconut milk that tends to have it in quite often. Gums, so things like xanthan gum, which you might find as a thickener in a lot of products. Nightshades, so these are tomatoes, peppers, chilies, aubergines and white potatoes. It doesn't include sweet potatoes. And we also remove alternative sweeteners such as stevia and mannitol. And finally, alcohol. Now, I've never been a big drinker, but I've got to tell you, when I had all of these foods removed and my stress levels were quite high and I was feeling quite crap, to put it bluntly, I had no life, I had no social life, I was feeling really quite miserable. I could have done with a cider, if I'm honest with you, but especially in the summer months, but I abstained from alcohol. I am able to have it occasionally now. I just choose not to really, but I'm okay if I have the right alcohol. So when I talked about removing grains, you have to be careful about what alcohol you drink, because something like whiskey is made from a grain. Malt whiskey, malt is a grain. And so again, you have to be careful. Some vodkas are made from potatoes, some made from grains. So you need to read the labels, really, know what's in your food. I have a little rule, which is if there are more than 2 items in a product and I don't know what they are, I'm not eating them. And at the very least, I'm going to Google it and find out what they are. But in an ideal world, I want to avoid anything that is man-made and produced in a factory. I want to stick to meat and fish as it comes off the animal, and fruit and veg as it comes off the tree and out of the ground. So you might be thinking, well, you've taken all these foods out, what the bloody hell can I eat? But there's loads of other foods. I've found a love for the Asian greengrocers, where I can get white sweet potatoes, purple sweet potatoes, orange sweet potatoes, Asian cucumbers, cassava, plantain, green ones and yellow ones, and also green bananas. So there are loads and loads of options out there. It just means being a little bit creative, a little bit imaginative, and going outside of those typical foods that are on your shopping list. But it's perfectly possible. And I've actually found some really amazing flavors. And again, I will share some of my finds on another call. But I've got this amazing cookbook, which is Latin American paleo cooking. Now, the difference between paleo and AIP, autoimmune paleo or autoimmune protocol, is that AIP is a bit stricter. So there are some foods on paleo that you can have, which you can't have on the autoimmune protocol. So this book is amazing because it will give you AIP adaptations. So it will tell you to skip this or swap this if you're following AIP. But there's some really amazing things in here with like cheese buns. So they're using a cheese alternative, fried meat turnovers, shredded beef in tomato sauce, garlic, lime, fried shredded beef, ground beef hash. There are some really amazing foods. So if you're thinking, oh, there's nothing left for me to eat, I can assure you there is plenty. And for those that are thinking, oh my goodness, how do I give up coffee? I love coffee. I won't lie, cheese and coffee were the two hardest for me to give up. I got down to 1 coffee a day, that first one in the morning, to give you that little kickstart. And it took me a little while to build up to cutting that out. But then I found roasted chicory. Oh, I don't know if you can see that with the light. Roasted chicory. So it's got that kind of bitter smell. It's actually a root vegetable which has been roasted and then ground up. So it looks like coffee. Smells like coffee, I think, and it has got that bitter taste to it. Now, there was a bit of a gap between me cutting out coffee and starting on the chicory, but to my mind, I believe that it tastes and smells very similar, plus it's just that nice, warm, comforting drink. So, what can we eat on the AIP diet then? So, vegetables in abundance, minus those nightshades and minus those legumes. Meat and seafood, coconut products, there are so many of them now. You can get coconut sugar, you can get tiny bits of coconut, you can get coconut flakes, coconut flour, you can even get coconut cream, and I found, not that I can eat it because I'm intolerant to it, but a coconut jam. So there are so many different coconut products that are really versatile, which you can replace traditional things such as butter and milk with. Non-dairy fermented foods such as kombucha. There are many different flavors. It's a nice fizzy drink alternative, but it's also full of healthy, good bacteria for your gut, which is going to help repair that leaky gut that we talked about earlier. Arrowroot starch. This is another flour that you can use to like thicken things. So for example, you might have used corn flour in the past to thicken things. That's a grain, and that's not permitted on the AIP diet. And so arrow starch is another great alternative. Gelatin. I've actually got the smell of bone broth oozing out at the moment. I've got a batch cooking. So you can take a gelatin supplement. I like Great Lakes. And gelatin, either as a supplement or from bone broth, is fantastic because it's got really good connective properties. So it's going to help to heal up those holes in your intestine and make sure they're connecting properly. But it's also going to help your nails, your skin, your hair. It's going to help get rid of wrinkles. I do have a few wrinkles, but I'm 38 now and I've barely got any wrinkles. My nails are stronger than they've ever been, and I've just generally got tighter skin. And I believe that's because I regularly take bone broth, but also collagen as a powder. Herbs, so I mentioned the ones that are not from seeds, such as nutmeg and coriander, but all other herbs are fair game on the AIP diet. Green tea is also permitted, but do be aware that if you're sensitive to caffeine, then green tea does contain caffeine in it. So I personally very, very rarely drink it because it can be disruptive to the immune system for those people with a problem. And vinegar is another option on AIP diet, but of course you want to avoid those malt vinegars because malt is a grain and grain is not permitted on the AIP diet. Now that sounds very restrictive, a lot of foods that have been cut out, but hopefully I've highlighted some foods that you are still able to eat. And it is not a diet for a lifetime. It's something that we use as an elimination diet. So we do it for a number of weeks. We cut out all those foods, and then one by one, we add in the forbidden foods, and see how we get on with them. We see how we react. Now, the body's fairly lenient, so the first time you reintroduce a food, it might be all right. The second time, it might think, and the third time, it'll be like, no, not interested. So you do need to try it in small doses and see how you get on with it, and try it more than once. But you might also find that you're able to reintroduce a food item in small doses. So you might be able to have it once every couple of weeks, for example. You just might not be able to eat it every day or several times a week. Now, I actually stayed on the AIP diet for quite a long time because my leaky gut was very bad, and because I had stress going on, which I've talked about many times, impacts our immune system, which is why my immune system was overreactive. Stress was continuing to trigger my immune system, and so I wasn't healing as quickly as perhaps I might have done if I'd addressed my mindset a lot earlier in the journey. But again, it was a journey, it's all a learning process, and I'm now able to use that to share with other people. So it's all part of it. Thank you for watching my video. If you found that useful, why not subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to push the notification button so that you'll be alerted anytime I post a new video, so that you won't miss out on my top tips for living a happy, healthy, productive and stress-free life.